Welcome back to MindXMotive. Today's case is one straight out of a horror story. When I go into the details, you will either ask me to stop or tell me to stop exaggerating. But believe me, as much as I love being dramatic, this is a tale far stranger than fiction. One case that is not for the weak of heart or stomach. So if you think you cannot stomach this case, I highly suggest you click off it. This story begins in the Day household in the hustling and bustling city of joy, Kolkata. This case will bring you anything but joy. Oh well, it's my job to show you all the twisted realities of the human mind. 15 June 2015, house number 3 on Robinson Street in downtown Kolkata was famously renamed the Kolkata House of Horrors. The ownership of the Dey family home was one that caused dispute between the two Dey brothers, Arun and Aurobindo. However, Aurobindo and his family lived in this house as of this case. At this time, 77-year-old Aurobindo Dey lived in the house along with his son Partha and daughter Debjani. Aurobindo's wife, Aarti, had passed away in 2005 after a long, debilitating battle with cancer. On this date, the neighbors called the cops to the house. Why, you may ask? Well, thick and dense grey fumes came out of what seemed to be the exhaust fan of the bathroom of the house. Police officers rushed to the house and expected the door to be opened by someone frantic and in distress. But instead, they encountered Partha, calm as ever. He opened the door, seemingly unaware of the smoke originating from his house. He led them into the house, and the first thing the police noticed was a strange droning sermon being given in an English voice. It was the voice of an English televangelist whose teachings were being played through various different hidden speakers dispersed around the house. Can you imagine what was going through the minds of the officers? This should have been the least of their worries. If you think the sermons were the only evidence of their immense devotion, you'd be sorely mistaken. The walls of the house were lined with spiritual books. The number of books is estimated to be around 20,000. The bathroom door, where the fumes seemed to originate from, was locked from the inside. Upon the police breaking in, they discovered the horrifying sight of Aurobindo Dey's body, charred, lying in the bathtub. There lay an empty can of petrol and a suicide note which said the following, and I quote, "I am leaving this world of my own free will. No one is to be blamed. I am 77 years old. Bless you all. Goodbye, Partha. Love you. Love you." There was no sign of foul play. The suicide note clearly stated that he did this of his own volition. The bathroom door, being locked from the inside, was another strong indicator, and the handwriting on the letter matched Aurobindo's, leaving nothing to the imagination. The only peculiar thing about the letter was that he only addressed it to his son Partha. Debjani wasn't mentioned in the letter, and nor was she seen at the funeral. Partha did not make it out to seem that the family had any issues, so this really stood out to the cops. Partha did not seem to handle the death of his father too well, so the police began to do frequent welfare checks on him, but never saw this aforementioned sister, who seemed to be more of a fictitious character by the day. As time went on, Partha's mental health only deteriorated, and he became reclusive and erratic in his behavior, making him seem like a threat to himself and his sister. Due to an amalgamation of problematic behaviors, Partha was brought to the police station. We will ruminate on the details of his psyche in the next episode, but for the time being, let's discuss what Partha said to the police. A confession, perchance? He muttered under his breath about having committed a crime. Oh, but listeners, don't you worry. According to Partha, it was a crime, and I quote, only in the eyes of the law, end quote. And he had done so only because he couldn't let his sister or dogs leave him. Okay, maybe that wasn't as reassuring as he hoped it would be. The police immediately decided to go back to the They residence. Earlier, they had only been responding to a complaint regarding smoke, and when they discovered the origin of it, they didn't think to check the rest of the house. Oh boy, was that a faux pas. Upon their investigation, they discovered something so very egregious. A sight that would horrify just about any sane person, perhaps even insane ones. There was one room which was locked, and Partha refused to open it. After a lot of persuasion, the officers finally entered the room. At that moment, they all would have probably regretted all the series of unfortunate events that led them to seeing the sight they were about to behold. As the officers stepped into the room, they were immediately overwhelmed by the stench of decay. Thick, suffocating, and impossible to ignore. The air felt heavy, tainted further by containers of rotting food scattered across the floor, left to fester and intensify the smell. It was clear that Partho had deliberately sealed the room, blocking vents and exits with clothes and debris, as if trying to contain the horrors inside. Hence the name, the Kolkata House of Horrors. At the center of the room lay what first appeared to be a pile of animal bones. But as the officers moved closer and carefully pulled back the covering sheets, the reality revealed itself. Beneath them were human remains, arranged with an unsettling sense of care. A full skeleton, gently wrapped in a blanket, placed as though it still belonged there. Nearby, on the bedside cabinet, were stuffed animals and dolls. The remains were those of Partho's sister, Debjani. Beside her lay the skeletons of the family dogs. The police were quick to jump to conclusions of Partho having killed his sister, but the real story is much more gut-wrenching. The family had two Labrador dogs that died in August and September a year prior. I've already told you all about how deeply spiritual this family was. The subsequent deaths of the dogs altered how Debjani viewed the world. She was very close to them and couldn't take it. She kept the remains of the dogs near her bed. She thought the house had been cursed, and that's what caused the inexplicable deaths of their dogs. Debjani thought the only way to appease the gods that were upset with her family was to starve herself for salvation. Debjani starved herself to death. So, in a way, the curse of death went on in their household. Debjani had passed 6 months prior to the discovery of her corpse. Her skeleton was wrapped in a blanket. Upon Debjani's death, Aurobindo was also kept in the dark for a long time. He only learned about Debjani's death in March when she had died in December. This household is deeply problematic, but now at least we know why their father didn't mention Debjani in the suicide note. Neither Partho nor Aurobindo decided to intervene in Debjani's self-destructive decision not to eat. From the outside, the Dey family seemed like a rather close-knit one, despite them being reclusive from the rest of the world. They liked to dwell amongst themselves and never really gelled well with the outsiders. This was a detail prevalent in both Partho and Debjani's childhoods, but we will get to that in the third episode. Despite them living in close proximity their whole lives without much external influence, the family members rarely spoke to each other. Well, verbally, anyways. Upon further investigation, the police found bags full of written notes, which seemed to be their primary mode of communication. On perusal of the notes, they discovered the faulty mindset of this entire family. The crutch they relied on was religion and spirituality, while they themselves seemed to struggle with various mental health conditions. Many theories suggest that Aurobindo killed himself upon finally discovering Debjani, and he was not able to handle the heinous nature of the way Partho had tried to keep her alive, and finally decided to kill himself. But This may not be supported as he'd found out about Debjani's demise 3 months prior. When Debjani passed, Partha decided not to report her death to the authorities. Now, I'm not sure what his agenda was. Perhaps he was in denial that his sister was actually gone. His response to her death was, well, psychopathic at least. He bathed her skeleton, tucked her into bed, and slept in that same bed. Perhaps some of you are wondering if this means he committed necrophilia. Again, just speculation, but I don't know how to debunk or confirm that. He shared every meal with her, tried to feed her, and otherwise just discarded all the leftover food in that very room. He kept his sister's favorite dolls near her bed to make sure she had everything she would ever need. Upon forensic analysis, the case came to a standstill as Debjani's death occurred due to natural causes because she had indeed starved herself. They couldn't charge Partha with murder, so they chose to pin it to the charge of potentially spreading infectious disease, and hence a danger to himself and the people around him. He did this by letting dead dog carcasses and the corpse of his sister fester while they were surrounded by rotting food. The Day family was a deeply intimate and personal one, and Partha really couldn't fathom the police looking into their family's history and digging up their past, as he was the solo delegate remaining from this family. Thus, most of the information we have about this case is from the notes discovered from their house, which was their primary mode of communication, as well as diary entries of both Partha and Aurobindo, as Partha was not being compliant. The courts did not sentence him to jail time. Clearly, he wasn't in a sound state of mind, and hence they sentenced him to a psychiatric treatment facility instead. He was admitted to the Pavlov Hospital in Kolkata, where he remained on 24-hour watch at the facility, and the psychologists who treated him concluded that he had psychosis with attachment and boundary issues. His religious ideologies and sentiments remained intact even in this difficult time. During his treatment, he misbehaved most with the female nurses, and he reportedly cried out to Jesus and Mary during his episodes. Over time, with medication and treatment, he made a miraculous recovery. It was almost a complete remission on all his prior mental illnesses. His religious ideologies and beliefs, however, did persist. In fact, as he left the mental institution, he informed the doctors of his intentions of being a man of God and serving God for as long as he lives now. This behavior was, however, normal and not as dogmatic as he once seemed to be. In October of 2015, Partha was put under the care of a priest at a Christian religious congregation where he was seemingly thriving. He actively participated in all the religious programs and was able to successfully assimilate back into society through normal social interaction. To further assist himself out of the rut of his old life, he sold the house on Robinson Street and instead purchased an apartment in West Kolkata. This, however, may not have been the best strategic move for him, as living alone in his new apartment seemed to bring about issues for him. The social interaction in the religious congregation is what helped bring him back to some semblance of sanity. Now, the solitude of living alone did not do him any favors. A dreadfully familiar call was made on 22nd February 2017 about thick smoke coming out of an 11th floor apartment in West Kolkata. I suppose we don't need to be Sherlock to understand what had transpired. Partha's body was found almost in the exact same state as that of his father years prior. A half-empty canister of kerosene was found along with the charred remains of the once pragmatic software engineer. He left behind no suicide note, but foul play was ruled out due to his extensive mental illness history. A day before his passing, however, he had left a slightly cryptic message on his social media. Quote, "It's better to light the candle than curse the darkness." End quote. While this statement sounds rather hopeful, taking a small step to better your life, However, for the mentally disturbed Partho, that may have meant taking his own life. One of the neighbors of his apartment, Joydeep Sen, said, I stumbled upon him many a time in the corridor and in the elevator, but he never smiled or interacted. He lived all by himself and sometimes used to go for a stroll in the evening. This final act of social isolation proved to be his untimely and unfortunate end. And that is where we leave the story for today. What happened inside the Day household was not the result of a single bad day or a single bad decision. It was the accumulation of years of social isolation, a dysfunctional family, religious preoccupation, and untreated mental illness. In the next episode, we will dive deeper into the specific psychological state we saw Partho in during the interrogation process, as well as the other family members, and discuss what leads to such fixations on ideologies that may ultimately be harmful to us. So, if you think the story is disturbing now, trust me, we've only scratched the surface. Until next time, I'm your host Raya, and stay tuned for the next episode on MindXMotive. Just remember, when the act is over, the mind remains.